Welcome to Dissect the Question. Let's get our question scalpels out. A 50-year-old woman is brought to the emergency department by an ambulance and is barely breathing. Her family says she has no chronic diseases and had been well until a few hours ago when she complained of profound fatigue and weakness after the family returned home from a church picnic. At the picnic, the menu consists of grilled hot dogs, hamburgers, and potato salad. A deficiency in activity of which of the following substances is most likely to explain the woman's condition? Well, we see questions like this quite often where it refers to a condition, so we have to understand the condition first. Let's go back to the clinical vignette and see if we can determine what condition is being asked about. She's brought to the emergency department by an ambulance and is barely breathing. Well, it seems like the condition then is lack of breathing. Now, breathing is a voluntary action. We can control our own breathing. It happens automatically sometimes. In fact, when we're asleep, it happens automatically. We don't think about it, but I can take a big breath and blow it out. So that's voluntary muscle. So we have to remember that the diaphragm and the chest wall muscles that control our breathing are voluntary skeletal muscles. Now, the involuntary part of breathing that happens when we're asleep, we call reflex breathing, occurs from the brain acting on these skeletal muscles. But the skeletal muscles are then voluntary, and so we're thinking about breathing being inhibited. That is, the diaphragm and the chest wall muscles are being inhibited by perhaps something she had at the picnic. Well, the culprit is likely to be potato salad, because potato salad has mayonnaise in it that grows bacteria. Whoop, I think I spelled mayonnaise wrong. I think it's 2 N's and 1 S. Sorry about that. So, botulism is what we think about when we have food that goes bad. There are other bacteria, but botulism comes from a bacterium known as Clostridium botulinum. And actually, we take an extract of Clostridium botulinum toxin and give it as a drug, Botox, to paralyze muscles. So here's a motor neuron releasing acetylcholine from vesicles. And it turns out Clostridium botulinum inhibits the release of acetylcholine from those vesicles. So if we have a skeletal muscle here, here's a striated skeletal muscle with acetylcholine receptors on it. Now we block the acetylcholine with Clostridium botulinum coming from the mayonnaise served in the potato salad, because maybe it was out in the heat and that bacteria grows quickly, and therefore we're looking for something in these answers that's going to relate to what we know either Botox does. We give Botox as a paralytic agent to get rid of wrinkles, cosmetic, plastic surgeons, cosmeticians, primary care physicians even give Botox for wrinkle treatment to paralyze the muscles. Got it? So it seems like, since we know Botox and Clostridium botulinum toxin attacks the vesicles are releasing acetylcholine, it appears that's a no-brainer. But we can't stop there. We always have to look for other choices, because sometimes there's 2 correct answers and we always ask to select the best one. So let's see, acetylcholinesterase is here as part of the acetylcholine receptor. We have acetylcholinesterase, okay? And if we didn't have enough acetylcholinesterase, the acetylcholine would build up. Acetylcholinesterase breaks down the acetylcholine to keep a muscle from being overexcited. So if there was a deficiency of acetylcholinesterase, we're looking for a deficiency, then we'd have too much acetylcholine and we'd get a action potential from the muscle. The muscle would contract and it wouldn't stop the voluntary skeletal muscles on the chest wall like the diaphragm and other muscles for breathing. Calcium, magnesium, and manganese. If there was a deficiency of calcium, we'd also have a higher excitability state. We know calcium blocks sodium channels in the motor neuron. So too much calcium would inhibit action potentials in the motor neuron, inhibit release of acetylcholine. So a deficiency of calcium would allow too much sodium to enter, and we get overexcitation rather than the blockage that we expect when a patient is barely breathing. Same thing with magnesium, and the same thing with manganese. Both magnesium and manganese are chemicals. When they're ionized, magnesium blocks the sodium channels just like calcium does, and manganese can block the release of the acetylcholine at the synapse. Manganese. So we're looking for something where there's a deficiency. We would get a paralysis that would cause a patient to be barely breathing. If there was a deficiency of manganese, we'd again, just like calcium and magnesium, have a hyperexcitable state. Instead of barely breathing, the patient would probably be overbreathing, but the muscles would not be paralyzed. So it seems like the only appropriate and best answer is A, acetylcholine.